Um, yeah, so hello everyone and welcome. I'm Rachel Berg. I'm Head of Learning and Programs at WAG-Qaumajuq in Winnipeg. And thanks so much for joining us for this special RBC at WAG virtual studio visit with INUA artist Maya Sialuk Jacobsen. Really thrilled about this. INUA, of course, is the inaugural exhibition at Qaumajuq, the new Inuit Arts Center at the WAG, and it runs until February 2023. An amazing exhibition. You can learn more about it at wag.ca. Before I introduce our special guest, I just want to acknowledge that the WAG is located on Treaty Number 1, the original lands and waters of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. So I'm so honored to welcome artist Maya Sialuk, joining us from Svendborg, Denmark. We were just talking about the weather. I was telling her how cold it is in Winnipeg today. She was saying it's +7 in Denmark, which is great. Of course, it's a little darker there. It's about 7 p.m. for her. So thanks so much for joining us. We're just so thrilled that you're with us today. So I want to introduce you formally. So Maya Sialuk is a traditional Inuit tattoo artist, a private researcher in Inuit's intangible culture and religion, a teacher and lecturer, and she has over 20 years of experience in the tattoo profession. In 2010, she founded the tattoo and research project, Inuit Tattoo Traditions, which covers the Inuit territories in Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. Research and the work towards cultural preservation fills much of Maya Sialuk's every day. She's interested in research ethics as well as ethical issues surrounding the use of cultural heritage, both when it comes to outsiders and cultural members. As an artist, Maya works on the topic of cultural anchoring, as well as ethical use of cultural heritage. And she conveys these reflections that her research leads to in her artwork. In 2021, Maya exhibited in the exhibition Verden I Dig in Charlottenburg in Copenhagen and at the Nordic House in Reykjavik. She's also offered numerous public talks on Inuit immaterial culture, as well as co-authoring a number of articles on the subject of tattoo history research and the archaeology of body modification. So thank you so much, Maya. Wow, so amazing. It's such a treat for us to connect with you today and in your studio in Copenhagen. So how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's great. So we're so excited that you're welcoming us into your studio. We can see some wonderful things in the background there as well. And I'm going to, ask you a few questions shortly, but I just wanted to remind everyone who's joined in that feel free to post questions on the WAG chat throughout the conversation. This is meant to be informal and really comfortable for everyone. Near the end of the program, we'll offer a bit of time for Q&A. But I'd just like to start asking you a few questions, if that's okay, Maya.
Yes, please.
All right, so just for viewers who are less familiar with your work, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your research, which is so extensive?
Yeah, my research covers primarily tattooing within the Inuit tradition, but then it extends into like the female role in the Inuit community before colonization. It extends into religion, and as of late it has also extended into the more archaeological side of it, where I'm digging into the tools and building the tools, trying them out in various experiments, and participating in experimental archaeology projects with other tattoo scholars. And so it started out with me just collecting patterns, really. But I realized pretty quickly that I had something very big between my hands, and I suddenly saw that the way that we are used to dividing up between Canadian Inuit, Greenlandic Inuit, and Alaskan Inuit, you can't do that with the tattoos. You cannot do that with immaterial culture, because it runs like a red thread, and the tattoos being a spiritual practice that is rooted in the religion, we have that in common, and the variations of the patterns are the same variations that we see in the myth telling, the storytelling, where the landscape and the specific living circumstances are kind of coloring the myth and the tattoo pattern and the hunting practice. So I had to figure all that out, and of course also dive into those white guys who have been writing about us. We are very researched people, but I had to understand their worldview as well. And so I know a lot about white men right now, and the way they were thinking and are thinking, and it has been very interesting, and is kind of like the foundation of all the work that I do, even as an artist or a writer, or when I disseminate, or whatever it is that I'm doing. That is like the foundation.
Yeah. So you began this research about 20 years ago, you said?
No, maybe it's beginning to be like 12 years that I started collecting patterns. And but as a Western tattooer, I was a Western commercial tattooer before that. And people were always asking me, like my colleagues would ask me, why are you not doing those Inuit facial tattoos? And I was like, on who? Because I was working in Europe, I was working in Norway and Holland, and I was traveling the world tattooing, and I would meet all kinds of people, but no Inuit. And I just knew that I was not going to tattoo this on non-Inuit people. So I didn't catch on to it until after 10 years of Western tattooing, but that definitely led me there. And the fact that I am a tattooer and understand the craft and has made it's very it's a big benefit to the research, like all the ways that they are describing the methods that people who were describing us were not tattooers, and they would describe methods, and I was like, that makes no sense, let me try. And, and so in that sense, I understand what happens when you insert pigment into the skin, and how needles and soot and whatever, how it all works, and that has been a huge benefit to my research for sure. But I didn't do any Inuit tattooing until maybe, I don't know, 2015, 14 or 15. I had already done a lot of research before that, before I started actually practicing the tattooing on Inuit. And then after moving to Denmark, where I think it's the third largest Inuit population in the world lives here, then I had great opportunity and reason to do the tattooing. But it was very dry research before that, before I felt ready to do it. Yeah.
Interesting. So, the research has impacted your practice as an artist. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? How that research became part of what you're creating?
Yes. Well, I'm half Greenlandic and half Danish, and I grew up in Greenland. And my family, like any other family, has been impacted by the post-colonial reality that we are and we're living in. And I'm old enough to remember Greenland before we had home rule, and definitely before self-governance. And the way things were, the way that mindset, the worldview, and you know, that's how I grew up. I grew up in a place that's not very big. It's a small town, and it's hunting and fishing is like the main occupation there. So my cultural anchorage was quite strong, and on top of being a small town, it's also on an island off the coast of Greenland. So we were like quite isolated, and a lot of the old ways were and are still in practice there, but kind of riding next to the Protestantism that was brought to us. And I was raised as a Lutheran Protestant, but had the old ways next to it. So for me, I didn't know what was what, basically, when I was a kid. But then I started doing the research, and I started being able to divide it even further than what my adulthood was able to provide, you know, just by learning the world. And I started seeing the differences in, you know, how do you call that? What is expected of you as a Greenlandic woman or a Danish woman, and what we have of. Well, sometimes it's just easier to be a Danish woman. Let me put it that way. And I was quite appalled and angry in the beginning when I started realizing how incredibly beautiful and strong Inuit culture really is, and Inuit religion, how big it is, and how cosmological it is, and how complex it is, and the thinking of it is touching in on things that Christianity is not even, you know, close to in complexity. I found Christianity suddenly being so simple. There is like a finishing line. This is how it is. It's written on page this and that. We don't think about it. There's only one entity that is allowed to know everything, and it's not humans. It's God. And for me, that was such a contrast to what I was learning as an Inuk child, where it was like you should always lift your qillet. You should always learn. You should always get more insight, much like Buddhism and Taoism, where you're supposed to always look for enlightenment and understanding and strive for that, instead of saying, well, we know, and closing it down. So I became kind of upset that I had been, as a curious and thinking person, had been locked in that box for so long. And I was very happy to leave it and expand my mindset in the way that felt natural, because that's how I kind of grew up. It was a big part of how I grew up. But I've always only heard negative things about our culture, and like bad things like, you know, Greenlandic women are vulgar. You can expect to become a vulgar woman, and you know, all these things that are very demeaning, and was literally about my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and all my mothers, and myself and my daughter. And I was like, I'm having none of this. I'm not accepting this. I will have to disseminate for the rest of my life how amazing Inuit women were and are. And the tattooing, you know, is a female practice, and was a female practice. And so it was a perfect point to work out from. But also with great sadness, I witnessed, the more I understood, and I was witnessing how the practices, not only tattooing, but other things as well, how they have been turned upside down and kind of lost the spirituality. And I used social media a lot, following all the groups where there are Inuit, reading their questions like, why are Inuit not allowed to sew on Sundays, for instance, you know, is that an old taboo? Or, and it's like, no, that's Christian, you know. And Inuit didn't have Sunday. So it was like the starting point of my new art. You know, my old art was very different, but the art that I create now, I very much strive to tell the story of the spirituality left behind, and kind of trying to say that if we want to heal and understand who we truly are, we also have to understand our worldview that we come from, and in there lies the spirituality that I think most Inuit will say they can still feel that they have, like strong intuition and you know, respect for nature, gratitude toward the animals and the sky spirits, the sun and the moon, etc. You know, the weather. I love being on Facebook when it's like what white people would call bad weather in Greenland, and everybody going like, "Woo, Sila is going crazy out there. It's lovely," you know. So there's like that different mindset where we still have a leg in the old camp, but we also have a leg in the new camp. And I'm just trying to show that, you know, both the parts where it is a conflict, but also the parts where it is not a conflict.
Interesting. And I think that's, you know, what you've just said too. I'm thinking about your work that's in the INUA exhibition. I'm just going to share the screen here so we can see it. Here it is, so viewers can see. Just incredible. Can you see this on your end?
I can.
Yeah, I love this. I love this work, and I think it really relates beautifully to what you were just talking about. Do you want to talk a little bit about this? It's entitled Ati, is that right? Namesake from 2020. Do you want to talk a bit about this?
Yeah. When I was invited to be part of this exhibit, I thought a lot about, I did a lot of thinking on what would I like to contribute with, and it was a very conscious decision to bring that duality of the old camp, new camp that I just talked about, to bring that in where it is not a conflict, where it is a positive, and where it is just beautifully just riding along, nobody saying a thing about it, and that is in our name tradition. The way that we Inuit inherit names and live in the names of our ancestors is something that Christianity was not able to remove. I don't think Christianity even tried, because I have understood now that the white people did the same in the old days. You would be named after your father, etc. They just had a different reason behind it. So the spiritual part of this spiritual reincarnation of the name spirit in a new child, of course, was very Inuk. But today it is just how it's done still, if you think a lot about it or not. I know a lot of people are still thinking a lot about it, and an example is that my brother, who is the little boy in the middle, he lives in the name of the man who's, I want to say, in the sky, and that is his grandfather. And I still receive meat from families that were very fond of the old man, just because I'm the sister of the new old man, the little boy, who's a grown-up now, by the way. So I took the people closest to me, or not all of them, but two of the people that are very close to me. It's my daughter on the left. Her name is Sophie Inuk, and she lives in the name of two people. Sophie is my grandmother, her great-grandmother, and she is from Akisamniak, which means the place for ptarmigan hunting. So I gave her the birds on her shirt and the halo of the feathers, and her name is also Inuk, after my mother's sister. So I gave her the little Inuit dolls in the halo as well. Sophie Inuk feels a lot of responsibility living in the name of these two women, but is also very proud. I myself, the self-portrait on the right, I don't have an Ati that I'm named after. I have a whole people in Central America, which is quite heavy, I would say. But my name, Sialuk, means rain, and I'm kind of tried to put that in my shirt. But my halo are the tattooed hands, the history that I bring with me, and that I'm trying to, just like the names, bringing forth into the future from the past. And I made the pictures like this with the halos and on wood, like in the churches of the saints in the churches, because the namesake tradition lives strong, and it is not about to go away, but we now get baptized. So we take like the old Inuit tradition and bring it inside the Christian church, and it's completely conflictless. There's nobody raising an eyebrow. So we're still living in the names of our ancestors with the blessing of the white God. So that's always been so interesting to me, that nobody is like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? I think it's both beautiful and also, I don't know, strange. It's a strange beauty in it, because the Christian church in Greenland means a lot. You could say, on one hand, it has destroyed a lot. We have lost a lot of culture to it, and there is that pain, obviously. But also, it's meaning a lot to most people, and Greenland is the the our language is preserved through the church, and is the only indigenous people's language that is not in danger. It is growing all the time, and is very strong. We have more than 80% of our country are speakers, and more than 30% of those speak no other language. They only speak Galician, which is, a whole different situation than in many other communities of indigenous people. So we are grateful for the church in that sense. It has always been a place where our language could be spoken, or it was not even like could be, it was. Everything was translated, and new psalms were written in our own language. And when Greenland was a place where everything was in the Danish language, everything except hunting and church.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, we've had so many people responding to your work in the galleries. We have thousands of kids coming through, and people just really respond to the beautiful colors and the bold patterns in this work. They love the materials too. I think it's ink and acrylic. and pencil, right, on wood panels. So was this a real departure from your usual work, or you know, people just love the warmth in this, in the colors, like I said. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes. First, I would like to say that there was a woman asking me on Facebook if I could actually make the shirts. So she would like to have the shirts.
That's great.
Yeah, I was
They
like,
are wonderful.
what a good idea. I might do it. But yeah, as for the colors, I don't know what happened there because usually I do not work in colors at all. I did, as a Western tattooer, I was doing a lot of very colorful tattoos, but on paper, on canvas, in any other medium, I always refrained from the colors, but they just kind of happened here. You could say that the portraits that I normally would do in this kind of style would have the color theme of the old man. And I made him different because he's not among us anymore. He's not here. He's in the other realm, and so I just wanted him to be different than these three living people. But the colors just came to me. I don't know. I don't know what happened really. but as it was in progress, I was both very much stressing about it and also kind of delighted. It was fun, and I'm definitely inspired to do more color work. But it was kind of scary because I'm not really in charge when I'm making art. It's just, you know, happening or coming to it. It happens, and these colors just wanted to be there. And as I was putting them on, I was like, oh goodness me, what am I doing? I hope this goes well. But I'm very happy that people respond to the colors, because I also see Greenlandic people as very colorful. If you look at our regalias and such, there's a lot of color, and I shamelessly actually managed to make artwork with the regalia in no color, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it just happened. I'm glad people like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's a warmth, you know, people, we've spoken with different visitors too, who, yeah, definitely look at that relationship to icons, which fascinates them as well. But there's a warmth, you know, they say there's just a sense of attraction and then warmth. It's as if we sort of know these people, or we're connected with them, even though we aren't. So it's just, they've been so inspiring for so many people to look at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think maybe I never thought about this before, but I think the work speaks to relation, and of course we are related, and that is also the whole idea of the namesake. You know, that the relations are going through time from the past into the present, but also like a young Greenlandic artist was telling the other day, that you kind of breaking a timeline when you have the spiritual reincarnation of the name. You're kind of like our view of time and relation is different than the Western concept of time, which is also something I'm very much thinking about, and I'm spending quite a lot of time kind of wrapping my mind around that part of our worldview as Greenlandic people or Inuit people, where the concept of time is even different, you know, like we don't have that, you can run out of time. We have that time is eternal and there and out of our hands. And you know, it's just and it's like seeing through the relations of generations, and it's just a very interesting concept. Maybe that is what people also feel, that there is a relation between these four people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I see there's more work behind you in your studio too. So you're, it looks like a very wonderful space that you work in. Do you want to talk a little bit about your workspace and your art practice? I'm going to just stop the share so we can focus on some of that work too. There it is.
Yeah. Well, it's an old house in provincial Denmark. So the room I'm in right now is an old grocery store.
Really?
So the house itself is like where the people lived, and then they have this little store on the corner of the street. And I took over the house 8 years ago, and I've been living in it maybe 6 years now. And I have two workspaces. I have this room where I do research, and there's a lot of books and stuff here, and I do the artwork, or I'm supposed to do the artwork in here. I usually bring it to the kitchen, but I'm supposed to do it in here. And fortunately, I have some artwork home. It just came home from exhibits, and I have some artwork that isn't home. I'm very sad to say. I would have loved to show it. I just did scenography for a Greenlandic play on the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen,
Right.
which was quite a big deal. It was the first time that there was Greenlandic actors on the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, and I did the scenography, and those items are not home, but I have the sketches though.
Ah.
Yeah, but it's a great room. It's a little cold in the winter and a little hot in the summer, but nothing is perfect. I will not complain. I love it.
That's wonderful. So it looks like there's textiles behind you as well. And so what are you currently working on? Are there, in terms of your practice, do you have a lot of things that you're working on at one time?
Sometimes they have a tendency to sneak up on you. So suddenly, 2022 for me was bleeding fingers from sewing. And 2022 was a big art year for me. I did a lot of exhibitions and did a lot of work on the art. This year, I am more focused on the research, and right now, I am writing a chapter for the Oxford Handbook on Body Modification. So my research has gotten me there, and I sit here and I write and I write and I write. And I, of course, some of the parts of the research that's going into the Oxford is something I've done 10 years ago, and I have to recheck it, confirm it, find new things, and so I've done experimental archaeology and research mainly so far, and also preparing to spend some time in Montreal trying to figure out something with the Concordia University, maybe pursuing a master's degree and getting the research down on paper, basically. And we'll see if it leads to a PhD as well. I'm hoping so, because I want the research to be, first of all, established, and second of all, available to people who don't live inside my head. So where a big majority of the research lives. So that is kind of my focus right now. I do have a few exhibit possibilities this year, and I'm now considering whether or not to do that. And if I'm doing so, it will be with the sewing things.
Okay.
Which I would love to show you guys when you're ready for it.
Yeah, why don't you show it to us? We'd love to see it.
All right. Well, then I'm going to take you guys for a walk.
Oh, beautiful.
Let me see. I wonder if I can turn this around. I can. Can I? No?
Well, it's whatever you're doing, it's working. We can see you. Oh yeah, there. That's perfect.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, where to start? We can start with the little lamps. These are metalwork, and they are the qushluq, the oil lamps. I did these too, and nature is working with me. They are rusting. They sit in my garden, usually rusting, and I'm making them as like we will never get rid of the lamps. We use them. They are in ethnographic collections. They are in public buildings. They are lit when something is happening, something like a ceremonial part. However, usually in the old tradition, for ceremony, we would turn out the lights, not light them. So it has been turned upside down. And for me, the rusting, and I'm hoping they will rust far more, I would like them to really disintegrate, is kind of the lost spirituality in them. I even see people lighting them and then saying a prayer to the white god. And that's like, whoa, you know, that kind of removes the last bit of the spirituality. The lamps too are a very important part of Inuit tattooing. It's an important pattern. So I have great love for the lamp. Also, it is mentioned in all the creational myths of the different spirits, the spirit of the ocean and the sky spirits. And so it goes way back and carries a lot of spirituality. You will see that in a lot of my work, like here too, by the feet and in the lamps, I have the blue mussels, which in Greenlandic is uilok. And the uilok is my son's name. And I use it a lot because I find them in everywhere in the world. I found these also in New Zealand, in Australia, in Denmark, in Greenland, everywhere. And I feel like the little creature that lives inside, that tastes really yummy, it's so safe and always home. Even it's rolling over the seafloor, it has its home with it. And I feel that's us when we have our culture with us. No matter if we are in diaspora, wherever we are, down south, we have it in us. So this is a wall hanger. And it's part of a work that I did for a big exhibition in Copenhagen that goes with this little girl here, which is the beaded collar of my mother's first day of school. And she was brought to Denmark with a Danish carpenter when she was like 7 or 8 years old. And the first photograph they took was this. I've been looking at this photograph like for a very long time. And one day I realized I can count the beads. I can see the pattern. I can redo the color. I can create it again and see the size of her when she came to Denmark, when she was scooped to Denmark. And she was tiny. I was like so heartbroken when I started realizing the size of her. And this happened to a lot of Greenlandic children. And very many of them never made it home. And my mother never made it home. So I did the wall hanger where the picture is on repeat. So she could kind of be the face for some of these children who stands nameless and faceless and are just removed from land, culture, family, food, you know. Their inner landscape is just torn apart, and they are replanted on a different continent, learning new ways. from the perspective that their way was not good enough. And I'm like, not having that. So I decided that my mom, I asked my sister first, obviously, and she was in on it. And we decided that it would be good for my mother to take that task. I couldn't ask my mom, she already passed. So what I did is that I stitched every photograph together and I put it as a wall hanger with my fingers. In Greenland and for many Inuit, it is very important, this sewing for our family members. And I was so heartbroken, no one was sewing for these babies anymore. So I sewed for them, and I swear there are blood drops on this one. And the backside, which no one saw, but now I will show you guys, is one of those really horrible cloths from the 50s and 60s, where you have like super silly versions of Inuit, you know, little dog sled guy here and caribou, and she's riding a polar bear. I mean, it's just crazy. And so I wanted that to be the background of her, because that is what these children learned, you know. Instead of getting a culture, they got like cartoon culture of their heritage. And the tablecloth, coincidentally, the print is called Banik, which means daughter, but in Danish it means panic. So I just felt that was very appropriate to have, like, I needed to make the wall hanger thicker. So it's been hanging in Copenhagen, in Charlottenborg, for 3-4 months, and a lot of people saw it, and I was very happy. I gave her the goose feathers so her little spirit could fly home. I wanted her to have the migration birds with her, you know. So that was one exhibit. And then I have over here, these are the sketches that I did for the scenography at the Royal Theatre. It was metalwork. So you have the complete sign of the universe from the Inuit culture. This is Silla, and then I broke Silla in pieces and made them in metal. And so even broken, it still holds a lot of power, I feel, and it is still a powerful symbol. So I felt that was like a statement to, you can't take it out of us. We still have it, no matter how much you try. And the big one was standing on its own, and all the broken pieces were on the other side of the room. It was very powerful. Then these are all little paper amag in Inuit, I think, amag in Galashisit. I like sewing in paper because I'm some kind of masochist. It's horrible. It's like sewing in water, but I do it a lot. I do it also as a commentary to the way that we use culture sometimes. We have such a strong, beautiful culture, and sometimes I feel like it becomes very quickly iconography of Inuitness. And I'm like, let's live it. Let's go deeper. There's so much healing to get if we go deeper, you know. Then I have a few things. They are from experimental archaeology. There's sinew thread and needles and bones to make bone needles from. And this guy here is timyak, big timyak, also made in paper, because I'm still a masochist, and it's awful. And I embroidered traditional tattoo patterns on the sleeves and on the chest, in order, like, because people are now wearing the tattoos without the spirituality behind it, and they become like a symbol for identity, which is very personal, and very needed, quite clearly. But I wanted to say that the woman back in the day didn't have the choice. She had to get tattooed. She couldn't have them on her timia and take it off, you know. And sometimes I grieve a little that we don't go deeper in the use of the tattoos, because there are so many gifts in there. And I think it will come, though. I think we are in a upstart. This is the phase where we just dive into it like mad. And I mean, I personally have tattooed more Inuit women than there were Inuit in all of Greenland, all the years that the tattoos were an actual practice, you know. So there's kind of a mass production going on right now. But I made all the fringes with good old-fashioned Danish meat string that the Danish people use for making roast. And I did that because we buy a lot of meat now. We don't necessarily go hunting. And again, no matter how superficial and how much meat we buy instead of hunt, we still have the connection to the ocean and language. And so we're not gone, we're just different. I'm not yelling at anyone. I just say, this is what I see, you know. So let's see. Over there is my little computer, 2 screens. I work with a lot of picture material, and it's a luxury to have 2 screens. I want to say to anyone who works with pictures. All my books, all of these books here are on Inuit. There's a few art books and stuff, but besides, it's primarily Inuit, and a lot of material that I use again and again. And here I have like drawing material where I miraculously found colorful markers. And yeah, I don't know. A lot of fabric and stuff. I'm not really using it. I just like it. It's like making me happy to have it there as inspiration, things with flowers on, and I don't know, it's just there. There are more little paper Amet on the way to be there. They are they have to hang like this, otherwise they collapse and break. So it's a nightmare. And I don't know if you can see all the way up there. Yeah. Some of the early portraits that I did. Again, it's people that are close to me. This is my daughter with all her drama, holding the skull like her own version of the Hamlet. And my lovey-dovey baby youngest kid with hard glasses on. And a friend of mine who has such a beautiful mind that I gave him flowers on his head. And I have like a study for a painting that I never actually did, but I liked the study. I got bored before I actually did the painting. So that's basically my workroom. And would you guys like to see the tattoo room also?
Oh, that would be amazing.
It's right next door. There's a door in between. Let me just close this. My son has returned home. So this is where I am doing the tattooing. I have a room which is only for that. So I can have it, you know, hygienic and clean and all the right stuff, good lighting. So I do nothing else in here, and almost all the things that are in here are related to the practice of tattooing, things that people can look at and relax with. But there's also a lot of amulets. There are feathers and like raven's feet, polar bear. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in here, a lot of tears and a lot of relief. And we live here, me and my two sons. So I kind of have to cleanse the room a little bit, make it, you know, there's a lot of hardship that comes out when people get tattooed. There's a lot of relief and there's space for that, but I don't want it to color the entire home. Makilat is there. The drum, I completely freeze every time I touch it. I will never be a drum person. I would like to, but I can't. And a didgeridoo from Australia, I brought that thing home all the way in my hand luggage because I'm crazy. And just stuff for, shall we say, ambience, old tools and tattoo tools from other people's. I have some Japanese tools here that I was tattooed with in, I think, 2003 or something. Some contemporary tapping tools that I got from a tattooer who uses them. All my feathers and stuff. Yeah. There's also a fantastic, no, it's not in there. Oh, it's laying here. A fantastic tool from Burma. This is actually a tattooing tool. Can you imagine?
Wow.
But look at that girl. Pretty, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's basically it.
Wow. That's amazing. Beautiful, beautiful. That's so inspiring. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Maya, for taking us through that. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions that they want to post on the chat at all. You've given us so much to think about. It's great.
I will turn this around again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love some questions if anyone has.
Yeah, let's see if someone. I don't see any right now. Oh, here we go. No question, Jocelyn says, but thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Jocelyn. And my boyfriend wrote Shatem, so that's also good.
Yeah. It's always so interesting to see, you know, to talk about an artist's work, but then to see, you know, where they create the work and the spaces, you know, the things that they surround themselves with, the things that inspire them. And it's so beautiful that your studios, your working spaces are attached to your living spaces. They're part of your living spaces. So it's not like you have a separate art studio that's, you know, further away from your home. You don't have to walk to or drive to a separate studio, but it really is a part of your everyday life. It's a part of your home, of your beautiful home. So it is like in my house, and it does have an impact. Like when I'm tattooing mainly Greenlandic women, sometimes Canadian women come here all the way from, I mean, that's amazing. wow.
And yeah, I know. And these people come into my home and it's relaxed and they can, you know, talk about the things that are bothering. Why do people need identity markers? There's always a story behind that, and they are freer here. I tried working at a tattoo studio, and for me it was amazing to be surrounded by tattooers. I am a tattooer, you know, but it didn't work for the women, you know. Also, the tattooers were like super open to my work, and it was great. But I don't know if they had thought it through, the fact that I would have Greenlandic women coming in every day was more Greenlandic people that they have ever encountered. And it just, I don't know, there was an unbalance that I didn't like. So I decided to work in my home studio again.
That's great.
It forces me to clean, so that's also good.
I just see here, Julie Begin says, thank you so much for sharing. This was so interesting. I look forward to the recording so I can share it with others. Thank you again. So thank you, Julie. Yeah, for sure. This is being recorded. It will be on our website, and really encourage you to share it. It's so great to see a behind the scenes studio. Yeah, it's great. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, I just really want to thank you, Maya, for this afternoon, for virtually inviting us into your space, into your working space, into your home. It's been so inspiring, and I know for me, you know, now when I look at your work in INUA, it just opens up a whole new window. I'm really just so honored that that you shared that with us today. Everything. So I also want to. Yeah, I also want to thank all the viewers as well for joining us. And as I mentioned, please share and be sure to check out our next, our upcoming RBC at WAG INUA virtual programs as well. We have the Zach Kunik screening coming as well. He's also exhibited in INUA, and Jenny Irene Miller will be doing an Instagram takeover as well in March. So please join us for that. All of our programming is on wag.ca. But again, thanks so much, Maya. Thank you for everybody joining in. And I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day and evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.